Good evening and welcome to College Planning Night, Part 2. My name's Steve Goldman, and I am one of the school counselors here at Middleborough High School. And for the next hour or so, we're going to be talking about what you should be doing over the summer. Thank you for joining us. And all this information is available on our website. If you go to the Middleborough High School website and you click on the school counseling department and then the junior information link, you can find all of this information, this workbook that we're going through today, and a recording of the last workshop that we did, because this workshop picks up where we left off in the Where to Begin workshop back in January. So if you're feeling like you might be a little bit lost, go back and review part 1, and that will help bring you right up to speed on where you need to be. Now, if you have not done anything yet, we strongly encourage you to start working immediately. This is not a hard process, but it is a very time-consuming and detailed process. And in order to do it the right way, you want to make sure that you're taking the time and not cutting corners. This is going to be a very expensive decision that you're making. And you want to make sure that you are making it with all the correct information and that you're submitting your best work and not rushing through applications and things of that sort because you're running up against deadlines. So with each workbook, when we go to the inside cover, we have a timeline of telling you of what you should be doing and when you should be doing it. It's a rough timeline. Most importantly, if you have not taken an SAT yet, and you would still like to do that, we would strongly encourage you to make sure you take care of that. There is an August and an October and a November SAT. So depending on when your college application deadlines are, you might want to select the appropriate SAT. Now, because of COVID and the pandemic, most colleges are test optional again next year. Some students still feel that they want to take it, and you don't have to report the scores if you don't want to. So if you have any questions about that, please contact your school counselor. When you go through the calendar here, the timeline, you can just see some of the important things that need to be taken care of throughout the course of the summer. Most importantly, I would say teacher recommendations. If you have not asked a teacher yet for a recommendation, I would strongly encourage you to do that before the end of the school year. Or if the school year runs out on you, send an email to a teacher asking if they would be willing to write a letter for you in the fall. In most cases, you'll only need one teacher recommendation, but again, you have to read the applications carefully to see what they're asking for. Do not send additional recommendations if they're not asking for them. They do not want extra material and extra pieces of paper. And sometimes if you send more than what they're asking for, they actually make a note in your file that you're not following directions. So just be very careful with that. So here we are in June with college planning for juniors and their families, what you should be doing over the summer. We talked about asking the teacher, see your school counselor with any final questions you may have. The school counseling department will be open the week after school. Depending on the counselor, you probably will catch counselors somewhere between 8 and 2 on Tuesday and Wednesday. After that, we go on vacation also, so you can certainly send an email, but just be aware we do not check our emails every day. We are not working that over the summer, just like you're not. If there's something that's really important, you can certainly call the main office and see if they can get in touch with one of us. In July, again, there's some tests. If you're interested in taking some tests, there's some deadlines for registering for tests. Moving along to August, our annual college application boot camp will be coming up in August. The cost for that is $75. If you're on free reduced lunch, you can certainly get a waiver for that. That if you attend the boot camp, it's 4 days. The first 3 days you'll be spending, and it's not full days, I should mention. It's actually either a morning or an afternoon session. And you'd spend the first 3 days with an English teacher working on your essay. And then the last day you'd be spending with your school counselor signing up for and completing the common application. So by the time you finish boot camp, you should be about 90% complete with this whole process. But you need to come to boot camp with your list of colleges narrowed down at that point, and some information from your family that we will send out later in the summer, ready to answer the questions on the application. And then coming back in September, we will have our annual college planning night for seniors and their families, the nuts and bolts of applying to college. And that's the last of the detailed information that you need to take care of before you send everything on out. So moving along in the workbook, just a reminder how to contact what the school counseling department is responsible for during this process and what you're responsible for. And then what we covered in the first workshop, which was in January, all the information is right here. And again, this is right out of the workbook that you can access by going right to the website and clicking on the junior information link. We talked a little bit about testing. There's two types of tests for college entrance, the ACT and the SAT. The ACT is not as well known in this part of the country. It is, for years, it had been more of a Midwest test and West test, but 99% of the colleges will accept either an ACT or an SAT. Most of our students take the SAT. It's just been tradition. You do not need to take both, and as I said earlier, a lot of schools are test optional next year again, so you may not need either one. The ACTs are broken up a little bit different from the SATs. The ACT is more subject-based, English, math, science, reasoning, and reading, and there's an optional writing section. The SATs are based on the evidence-based reading and writing and the math sections. So, as I said, those are the two traditional tests. Most of our students take an SAT. If you were looking to take a test, we would recommend starting with the SAT. If you've taken the SAT twice and you're not satisfied with your score, I would not recommend taking it a third time. I would then switch to an ACT and see if you score better on the subject-based tests. So all the registration information and the costs associated with that is all there. Just keep in mind, unlike the PSAT, you have to register directly with College Board for SAT or with American College Testing. You'd have to set up an account with them. You should all have College Board accounts at this point. We had you set those up when you were either freshmen or sophomores, and we've had you review them each year as you get your PSAT scores in. As you'll notice on the SAT grid there, College Board has listed the fall dates for SATs. However, they have not listed yet the deadlines. So when those deadlines are available, we will be sending those out also. But you can get that information right off of their website. So again, here's a little bit of a timeline of when these tests should be taken. We talked already about teacher recommendations. Usually it's a junior teacher that you would ask because they've seen you most recently for the longest period of time. You don't want to ask a teacher that you're having for the first time as a senior because they really haven't gotten to know you yet and what kind of student you are and how you perform in the classroom. You also want to avoid having asking a teacher that you took the test with when you were a freshman and you've never had them again. If you had a teacher as a freshman and you have them again first semester senior year and you're applying for regular decision deadlines, that actually might be a good person to ask because they can talk a little bit about the growth they've seen in you over the last several years here at the high school. But as I said, usually it's a junior teacher. The junior teachers get inundated with requests. And they do not have to say yes to writing your recommendation. It is up to them whether or not they want to do that. So my recommendation is before a teacher gets inundated, you know who the popular teachers are here at the school. Before those teachers get inundated with requests and they say, listen, I just can't write anymore. I don't have enough time to write these anymore. Lock yourself in with one of them. Okay. And as I said, you probably need one, maybe two. But double check, more is not better in this process. After you lock in your teacher, you will need to complete a form called the Teacher Letter of Recommendation Information Sheet. And that's what this blue form here looks like. And it's going to ask you some questions about your experience with that teacher in the classroom. It's going to ask you about your proudest accomplishment, challenge you overcame in the class, your least favorite, most favorite topics that you covered, things of that sort and everything. Any of these forms that you're going to fill out, because there's a guidance counselor one also that you're going to complete. The general rule of thumb is you get out of these what you put into them. So if you give one-liners or you skip these, you might be leaving out details that the teacher or the counselor don't remember. On the other side of things, it does not need to be the great American novel either. The colleges do not want anybody writing more than a one-page letter of recommendation, but they don't want your teacher or your counselor to spit out a letter that's just listing things that they can read in your application. Played football, played softball, got an A in this class, those types of things. They can read all that in your application. They're looking for the anecdotal information. If your proudest accomplishment was getting an A in a class, give us 2 or 3 examples of why that was your proudest accomplishment. That's what they're looking for. Even if your proudest accomplishment was getting a C in a class, maybe it was a subject that was extremely difficult for you. You went for extra help. You did extra credit questions. You had a study group. Those are the types of things that they're interested in hearing about in the letters of recommendation. So if you have any questions about that, just ask. We'll be happy to assist you with that. Very important. You'll notice in big, bold, red lettering, do not save these forms in Google. Do not put these into a Google Doc because it is going to completely change the formatting. It's not going to be real readable. Save these as Word documents or, in worst case scenario, a PDF. Try to do it in Word so you can go back later in the summer if you want to add something in there. But do not put them into Google because that's not going to help you or us later on in the process. Okay, so that's the teacher one. And there's a sample in the back of these forms also. So who might you ask? We talked about. What not to do, we talked about. This is the school counselor letter of recommendation. It's green. It looks similar to the teacher one. It's a little bit longer. Without you typing in this, it is already, I think, 3 pages. It really probably shouldn't be much more than 4, maybe a little bit onto the 5th page. These boxes will expand as you type. Again, no one-liners, state what it is, give 2 or 3 examples of why it was meaningful or significant to put on there, and then move on to the next section. If there's 2 things you want to write about after you give examples of the first one, then list the second one and give examples. And again, do not save these in Google. And the activity sheet is the 3rd document that you want to complete. This document goes to your school counselor. It should not go to your teacher. Your teacher is writing an academic letter of recommendation. They should not be listing that you're a member of the art club and that you play soccer or any of those other things unless they are your advisor for the art club or they are your coach in soccer. They should only be writing about their experience with you in the classroom. However, your school counselor is writing the all-round letter of recommendation. So we're going to be talking about your academics, your extracurriculars, both in and out of school. So it's important that you list all those things in there. And this sheet also doubles as page 2 for the scholarship application, which you'll be completing in February next year. So it's really important that you save this document. And so you do not have to redo this again in February. And there's a sample of how to complete this form in the back of the workbook. Okay. So every year we see students who really kind of shortchange themselves on their activities. They don't think they're meaningful or significant enough. Let's say you were a member of a club or a sport for only 1 year. You did it freshman year, you never continued with it. Put it on the activities list. It's important that you list it on that sheet. You don't, just because you only did it for 1 year doesn't mean that you weren't committed to it. You might have found something that you were more interested in later on, and moved on to something else and did that for the next 3 years. So always list everything, whether it was in or out of school, that you've been involved with. And we give you some samples of some of the things both in and out of school that you want to list. If you notice on the right-hand side where it says out of school, the top one says babysitting. Year after year, when I speak with students and I say, do you have a part-time job? And I hear no. And then they say, well, I babysit. Babysitting is a part-time job. And it's a job with a lot of responsibility. So again, don't shortchange yourself. Make sure that you're listing all these things in your activity sheet. Moving along, the college interview. Now, not a lot of schools offer interviews anymore. Just the mass and the volume of applications that are coming in, they just don't have time to do it. There are a handful of schools that still do it. The smaller schools tend to do it because they really, truly want to get to know the students there. It's amazing. Some of the deans and all that know the students almost like a principal would know his or her students at a high school. If a college is willing to do an interview, take advantage of it, and don't be intimidated or scared by it either, because the interview, as much as they're trying to find out about you, you're trying to find out about them. And if you're a solid student academically, they want you. And you are now in the driver's seat saying, well, how badly do you want me? And you want to make sure that they're going to offer you the opportunities that you might get at a different school that they're not offering. So it's important for you to interview them and find out about the school. So we do have some suggestions on this page here. If the college or university recommends requires interview, here are some questions, suggestions. Just call the admissions office and then ask them. A lot of times they'll do info sessions and then tours, and then after that, you maybe have an opportunity to do an interview. It's certainly okay to bring your parent along. Just be yourself. Be relaxed. Dress nicely. You don't have to get all dressed up in a suit or a fancy dress or anything like that. Just nice pair of khaki pants for the guys, and girls just dress nicely and appropriately, and just present your best self, okay? And then always make sure after an interview that you are communicating a thank you back to them, whether it's a handwritten or an email thank you note, or just make sure that because all that stuff goes into your application file. And they will remember that you were a polite, respectful person, and the type of person they'd want on their campus. So here are some of the sample questions you might want to ask. And then some sample questions you may be asked, and some sample questions you might ask. So kind of go over these and just kind of have these in the back of your mind, so you're prepared for it. The application and admissions. Now is the time to start getting organized for all this. Before your senior year, you want to make sure that you are finalizing your college list. You're completing a rough draft of your essay, that you complete your teacher recommendation, school council recommendation, and activity sheets in Naviance. And here is a quick overview of the application process. The major components are the application, essay, and fee, and that's completed by you. The secondary school report is completed by certain information you put in the application will be downloaded into the secondary report, and then your school council will complete the school piece of it. Recommendations, one by your school counselor, one by your teacher, unless otherwise stated by the college. Now, just keep in mind, we will not know. You got to give your teachers and your school counselor a minimum of 15 school days notice to be able to have the appropriate amount of time to write a well thought out letter of recommendation. A rushed letter of recommendation because the deadline is tomorrow is not going to serve you well at all. So once your teacher knows, you're going to make official recommendations in Naviance, and we will talk about how to do that in boot camp. And Your council will know that you're ready once they receive the form from you and that you make your request for transcript. If you do not request your transcript in Naviance, your council will never know that you need a letter and that you're applying to that school. And again, we'll address all that information when we're in boot camp this summer. The transcript and the school profile will be sent by your school counselor, and the test scores are the student's responsibility to send those out. The school counseling department does not have the ability nor the legal right to send official scores. That has to go directly from either College Board or ACT to the college, and it does not pass anybody else's hands. So you would make those requests through your online accounts with those two companies. I mentioned the common application earlier. This year, there are over 900 colleges that subscribe to the common application. So it's one application, it's one essay, and it saves you a whole lot of time. We will be filling out the Common App during boot camp in August. The Common application will not be available for next year until August 1st is usually when it comes out. So if you're trying to get a jump on any application, whether it's a Common App or a school's own application, and say, hey, I'm going to bang these out in July, you're filling out this year's application. It won't be any good to you. So August 1st is usually when all these become available for the following year. So there's different types of application deadlines. We have 5 different types. Early action. Early action usually runs between November 1st and December 15th. It's a non-binding application. You may apply to as many colleges as you would like to. If accepted, you may wait until you receive the replies from all the other colleges that you've applied to. Early decision also runs between November 1st and December 15th. It's a legal binding contract that you, your parents, and your school counselor are signing with the college, saying that you were applying to only one college early decision. If accepted, you must immediately withdraw all your non-early decision applications and enroll in that college that you accepted to early decision. We're not big fans as counselors of early decision because while that school might seem like the school that you want to go to in September, in May, you may have second thoughts, but you've signed a contract saying if accepted, I'm going there. Please do not apply to more than one college early decision. They check. I had a student several years ago who did that, got accepted to both schools and a scholarship for tennis. The schools found out about it and they both rescinded their decision and she lost her scholarship. So please don't play that game. And like I said, early decision, we're not big fans of it, only because you're locking yourself in very early and you're not even going to know about financial aid either for months to come. You know, what if you end up getting into a school that costs $75,000 a year and you end up only getting $10,000 a year in financial aid? That might be a big problem for you. So early action, go as many schools as you would like to, as long as you are not rushing those applications because it's early in the school year. You do not want to do sloppy work. Okay. Priority. Those vary. They're non-binding. They're similar to early action, but usually specific to the individual college. And then there's regular decision, which is usually from January 1st through April 15th. Those are non-binding. And then there's rolling admissions, which is non-binding. There's no deadline. You can apply to any school anytime if they're rolling admissions. You can apply in the middle of the summer for that fall if you'd like to. The nice thing about rolling admissions is there's always a college to apply to. So if things don't work out the way you had hoped or your circumstances changed, you still have schools you can apply to. Now, the downside of rolling admissions is once the school fills up, they fill up. So if the school fills up in January and you apply in February, which is still early in the regular decision process, if they're full, they're full. So you got to exercise a little judgment and balance as far as the rolling admissions goes. On this page, this is important information that you're going to need to complete your application. This is all of our information here at the school. So our CEEB code number, that is how our school is identified. You use that number for SATs. The colleges use that number. They don't recognize Middleborough High School. They recognize 221405. Everything's computerized. Our address, when spelling out Middleborough, make sure you spell it completely, OUGH. Do not abbreviate anything on your applications. Our phone number, our fax number. Now, keep in mind our fax number changed when we moved into the new building. This is our new number. If you have a different number someplace, you can discard it. It no longer works. The correct spelling of Mr. Brannigan's name, the correct spelling and contact information for your school counselors. Your class size will be finalized when you come back in September. The years that you attended Middleborough High School, you started in September 2018 and will be graduating in June of 2002. Unless you transferred in at a later date, then you'll need to edit that out a little bit. And then your anticipated graduation date is June 4th, 2022. The essay is one of the most significant parts of the application package. It offers a college a glimpse of the person behind the transcript. The essay is the most time-consuming part of the application. You should have a rough draft by the time you return to school in September. You do not want to go through the whole application and all the little details that go with that and then say, okay, I've got 2 weeks to write my essay and finish this up. You don't want to put that stress on yourself. The essay, they can read your transcript and they can read all the other stuff that's being sent, all the forms, but the essay is it's not just a writing sample, it's an opportunity for you to tell them what kind of person you are and why you belong on their campus. And you do not want to rush that. And you want to take some time to kind of gather some notes. You want to think about over the summer experience you've had where you learned something about yourself, an obstacle or a challenge you've overcome, a person you admire. And if you're going to write about another person, make sure you always bring it back to yourself and you explain why you admire that person. What kind of person have you become as a result of your experience with that person? What are your goals? What are your values and your beliefs? Every year we hear admissions counselors tell us we read these wonderful essays about grandma and grandpa and what wonderful people they are. And we gladly accept grandma and grandpa, but the essay doesn't tell us anything about the applicant. So you want to kind of work on the essay, maybe jot some notes, and then get away from it for a while, clear your head, then come back and maybe frame out an outline, and then get away from it for a while, then maybe start a rough draft, and then get away from it, and then go back. This way you keep going back with a fresh perspectives, and you're not just kind of reading the same words over and over again. So here are some tips for writing your essay. Please, very important in this technology age that we live in, use proper grammar, capitalize the beginning of sentences and proper nouns, use appropriate punctuation. This is not a text message you are sending. This is a formal writing sample. So it's very important that you express yourself the way you've been taught in your English classes. And listed here are the essay prompts for the 2021-2022 Common Application. So if you're using the Common Application, which probably most of you will be using, you have 7 choices, okay? And number 7 is a topic of your own choice if you don't like the other 6. So this will help you kind of start to outline and frame out that essay. And important dates and deadlines that are coming up. College Application Boot Camp, there's going to be 4 different sessions, one August 9th through 13th, and you can do either 12 to 2 or 5 to 7. And then August 16th through 20th, and you can sign up for either 12 to 2 or 5 to 7 for that one. So if you're interested, the applications are available in the school counseling office or the main office here at the high school. Again, if you the deadline to register is July 30th, $75. Fee waivers are available. So please sign up early and make sure you lock yourself in. You talk to any senior that's gone through this over the last several years, they're going to tell you it was well worth the time to do it. Later in the fall, hopefully in September, we'll be having college planning for seniors and their families, the nuts and bolts of applying to college. That's how we're going to get everything on out to the schools. And then in October, we have our financial aid workshop. We have an expert that will come in from the Massachusetts Education Finance Company, and they will help walk families through the financial aid workshop. This workshop is for both parents and for students, and you should both be a part of that. In February, our scholarship booklet will be released for all the local scholarships. That will come out. Usually it's the Wednesday before February vacation that information comes out, and you'll have about 5 weeks or so to complete those applications. National College Signing Day is on May 1st. This is the deadline date in which students must formally notify one college that they are accepting the offer for admissions, and then you have to seal the deal with a deposit. Senior Week will be the week of May 31st to June 3rd. And there are some of your activities that will be happening during that time. And then class of 2022, graduation June 4th at 6 p.m. at the Middleborough High School Stadium. So that is a summary of what you should be accomplishing over the course of the summer. In the back of the book, we have the sample forms so you can actually read them. These should be word processed, not handwritten. And like I said, and you access these forms, the instructions are in the workbook, but when you log on to your Naviance account, on your homepage, you scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see a box that says Document Resources. And then you're going to see the links for these 3 forms. Okay, so this is the teacher one in blue. Here is the counselor one in green. We used to say green for guidance, but then they changed the name of our department to school counseling. And here is the activity sheet, and we actually put a sample of how to word things on the activity sheet. So it's broken up into athletics, music and drama, school publications, student government, honors, clubs and other programs, community service, and work experience. So this shows you how to complete this form. Clubs and other programs can be both in and out of school. And then, like all the workbooks, we have the glossary of terms in the back of the book. So that is college planning for juniors and their families, what you should be doing over the summer. As I said, the school counseling department will be here for a few days next week following the close of school, if you have any questions, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. We wish you the best of luck with the process. We hope to see you at boot camp, and most importantly, have a great summer. Thank you.